Jungkook recently went live, but this time he decided to do it only by voice. He explained with complete sincerity that he couldn't turn on the camera because he had a small pimple next to his nose. Jungkook never hides anything and always speaks to us with a touching honesty, which is why it's inevitable to feel even more affection for him. His calm and sweet voice filled every corner of the broadcast. This live was also one of the shortest Jungkook has ever done. He only connected to say hello, saying he'll be back soon, when his skin is a little better. That gesture, so simple yet so precious, touched our hearts. Even though he was tired, he took a moment to think of us and remind us that he's always there. It's impossible not to miss him when he's not here, because every appearance, no matter how brief, leaves a mark. Jungkook is truly precious, not only for his appearance, but for his genuine attention to his fans. Even half asleep on the couch, his voice tired, he gave us a few minutes of company before going to rest. On the other hand, we recently saw Taehyung and Namjoon attend the VIP premiere of Park Chan-wook's No Other Choice. The event was full of energy and important guests, and they stood out with their elegant and confident presence. They both looked very handsome, but Taehyung shone with a special intensity. His gestures, his bearing, and his style inevitably caught the attention of everyone present. There was a funny moment when they were asked to make a heart together, and although they tried to do it, it was clear they weren't used to coordinating it together. However, while watching that interaction, we couldn't stop thinking about Jungkook. Because if he had been there with Taehyung, the situation would have been completely different. They have that natural connection that is reflected even in the simplest gestures. They would have formed that perfect heart that they always make when they are together, and would undoubtedly have provoked an unforgettable reaction among the fans present and those of us who followed every detail from afar. The truth is that every appearance, every interaction between Jungkook and Taehyung, gives us moments that become unforgettable memories. We cling to those details, those small connections that mean so much. And even though they weren't together this time, we still hope to see them share time again soon. Because when they do, they convey something unique, a warmth that goes beyond words. We eagerly await that moment when we can once again enjoy their connection, those glances and smiles that always fill us with happiness. The owner of a barbecue restaurant proudly revealed a recent autograph of Jungkook and his best friend Eunwoo. The owner explained that Jungkook visited the restaurant with Eunwoo and that their last visit had occurred 2 months ago, in July. This was no small detail, it was a significant outing because Eunwoo was about to face his enlistment, and that meeting with Jungkook had been one of those silent, meaningful farewells. The two enjoyed a meal together, in an intimate and relaxed atmosphere, before Eunwoo began a new phase of his life. This detail made fans quickly connect the dots, because at the same time, we knew Taehyung was also in Korea. He himself mentioned that he had visited his subordinate for his discharge, which coincided with the dates of Jungkook and Eunwoo's visit. This wasn't a simple coincidence, but a time frame that suggested Taekook was sharing space and moments, building memories that only later became more vividly apparent. The Taekook babies were in Korea, living their own routines and enjoying each other's company, until they shook the world days later with an unexpected appearance at the airport. That image of them together wasn't just a coincidence, it was a natural demonstration of closeness and love. Their gestures spoke louder than any words, they were clingy, in love, walking as if the world had stopped around them. And then came the scene that left everyone breathless. On the plane, Taehyung sitting on Jungkook's lap, both so comfortable, so natural, as if it were the most ordinary thing for them. It was a domestic moment, full of tenderness, but also of an emotional intensity that transcended screens. Jungkook's gaze, serious and possessive, seemed to say with silent force, "He's only mine." That visual connection, that way of claiming him without needing to speak, was enough to ignite everyone and confirm that their relationship was much deeper than the skeptics could accept. These two lovebirds weren't just showing their love for each other, they were doing so in such an obvious way that it defied any attempt to minimize them. With every gesture, every glance, every closeness, Taekook seemed to shout to the world that they were madly in love, and there was no room for doubt. It wasn't just a romantic demonstration, it was also a fiery and powerful declaration of belonging to each other. The way they claimed each other, naturally and without reservation, became a true nightmare for the jokers who always tried to deny their bond. While detractors searched for reasons to discredit them, they continued to show the opposite, a union that was ever stronger, more intense, and more visible. Reliving these iconic moments is inevitable because they are unforgettable. Every memory, from the visit to the restaurant to the scene on the plane, intertwines as living proof of a love that grows with time. Taekook not only drives his followers wild with the way they love each other, he also disarms them with the ease with which they create moments that seem straight out of a romance movie. Theirs isn't acting or coincidence, it's consistency and truth, a story that tells itself through the updates they share and the details they let slip. Today more than ever, Jungkook and Taehyung are inseparable, closer, more complicit, radiating that love that has always defined them and that continues to evolve. Each new appearance, each shared glance, each spontaneous gesture confirms that there's no turning back. It's a love that never stops growing, surprising, and captivating the world. And the best of all is that, although they've already given us so much, we know that what awaits us from them can only be even greater and more beautiful. There are many people who might interpret this as a simple game, something fleeting, or even a staged act for the cameras. However, it's enough to stop for a few seconds to observe the way they look at each other, the natural way they touch, and the way they get physically close regardless of who's in front of them to realize that what happens between Taehyung and Jungkook escapes any script. We're not witnessing a performance, we're witnessing an emotional truth so evident that no script could contain it. And therein lies the difference. They don't need words, they don't require explanations. They say everything with their intense gazes, with those caresses that seem to speak for themselves, with gestures that betray them even when they try to be discreet. The fascinating thing about Taehyung is that, without uttering a single phrase, they manage to communicate a feeling so strong that it's impossible to ignore. Every shared gesture is proof, every touch of their hands is a silent confession, every sustained gaze is a cry that, without using their voice, declares what they feel. These two lovebirds not only show their love for each other, they do so in such an obvious way that it demolishes any attempt to minimize their relationship. With every visual encounter, with every slightest closeness, it seems as if they're shouting to the entire world, "We're madly in love, and there's no room for doubt." This conviction makes them irresistible to watch and, at the same time, uncomfortable for those who try to reduce it all to a simple game. But it's not just a romantic demonstration. Theirs is a fiery and powerful declaration of mutual belonging. The way they seek each other out in the crowd, the way they claim each other without reservation, the natural way they seem to forget there are hundreds of eyes watching them, turns every shared moment into a setting where only the two of them exist. And that's precisely what makes those who insist on denying their bond so uncomfortable. Their connection is so palpable that no mockery, no excuse, no argument can obscure it. How can you ignore something that is repeated so clearly over and over again? In the relationship between Taehyung and Jungkook, there's always something that's deeply striking. It's not what they say, it's what they do spontaneously, without much thought. When they're around each other, everything about them changes. The atmosphere transforms, the energy seems to shift, and suddenly, gestures emerge naturally, as if they were inevitable. They touch without fear, they draw closer as if no barriers could hold them back, and they look at each other with a transparency that needs no explanation. They're glances that don't seek to be understood, they're glances that simply exist, that speak for themselves, that openly reveal the intensity of what they feel. And the most striking thing is that this doesn't happen just once, like an accident or an oversight. It happens constantly, repeated like a custom, like a habit that's already part of their way of living together. It's a pattern too obvious to be a coincidence, a series of gestures too sincere to be part of a carefully planned show. Can something like this even be faked? Can anyone sustain such authentic body language for so long if there's no real feeling behind it? The answer lies in the details, in the natural way they reach for each other, in the gentleness with which they touch, in that persistence with which they find each other again and again, no matter the circumstances.